Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel State. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
Here we go. We're live.
I know. The news is just breaking all over. You know, things are going crazy. Trump signed an EO today, an executive order to disband the Department of Education. I was reading that, and Cori Bush's husband is indicted on PPP fraud from the COVID loans. I mean, crazy stuff.
We're going to hopefully talk about all of it. I wanted to start off by telling you that my daughter gave me a hard time for having yoga hair and lack of makeup last time. So got the hair, but more importantly, I'm you.
Oh,
I'm
doing the double necklace thing.
I'm doing the double up. I'm doing the double up. And actually, in honor of the straws we talked about.
Oh, look.
We're women. We can have straws, guys. You know, that's fine.
I didn't say anything about women with straws.
Hell no. But I'll be damned if I'm doing a paper straw. I think we're all online with that. Yeah. Very hard plastic straw and raspberry tea. Nothing's in it. So don't gossip.
I like polar water. That's my favorite thing. I made Sloan go buy me polar water when she was driving up to DC when we went to CPAC.
You did. And actually I got you turned on to Skittles water.
Skittles water is primo.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say it. I'll say it.
Now you know. Just don't do 7, 8, 9, 10 a day like I do. All right. So, you know, very important. Obviously, Education First Alliance, I spent 5 years doing that, still doing that. So, you know, education, K-12, it has been my beat for years. And a very important thing happened, as you said, today. Right? I mean, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And the sound from executive orders, I could listen to the sound of him doing that literally all night long.
Well, you know what's beautiful about that is while I can't believe states are actually clamoring over it, it's going to bring more money back to these states to take care of
control. Yeah.
Right. But they don't want that. They don't want that because at the same time as money is coming back, schools, states are getting, you know, school vouchers. And while I know that's not something you really like, it is giving more freedom to parents.
Well, I don't like tax dollars going out without oversight. So
I agree with that.
Here's what I don't like. What I don't like, first of all, love Christian schools getting the money. I don't like radical madrasas getting the money. And in the law, you cannot differentiate.
True.
So that's the problem.
Think for me, it's going to give some competition, I think, in the rural areas where there are teachers that literally have left public schools because they cannot tolerate the ridiculous things that are going on. And if they can bring a cohort together and create a private school, it's actually going to make it better for people in rural areas.
Or a micro school or, you know, whatever that is. I do believe in competition. So I'm steeped in the policy end of it and I totally get it. But when you talk about conservatism and you talk about, you know, accountability, I think we'd be kind of remiss without talking about that angle of it. But that's just me. So look, Trump gave some very well elucidated reasons for having this position. I didn't love his lackluster presentation of this. We're going to put a little spice on it. Here's what he said. We've been saying it for years.
After 45 years, the United States spends more money on education by far than any other country. and spends likewise by far more money per pupil than any country, and it's not even close, but yet we rank near the bottom of the list in terms of success. It's an amazing stat. Those are two stats you don't want. The most money spent per pupil, and you're at the bottom of the list. And that's where we are.
So I think that sums it up. I mean, there's no ROI, no return on investment. And that's been really the driving force with Doge. And it's been something that has bipartisan support.
So the next step is to have Congress codify his executive order into law, which would, because they have to. And that's what we're hoping for. I think it's a good step. I know that our state superintendent is not happy about it, but you know what? I am. I'm happy because now he's going to have to really answer to the legislature in North Carolina about any funding that he gets sent back to the states for this. I think it's also going to become apparent where our money goes. I think Dave Bullock's going to get right into where is that money going in education, because he has a reason to now.
Well, but they've always had a reason to. So I'm going to push back on that. We already get a lot of federal funding, and the DPI, the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, has, I don't know to my knowledge if they've ever actually passed an audit, but they've been blowing through money, misplacing money. They've made themselves susceptible to phishing scandals, if you can believe it. So none of that money gets appropriated, right? Number one. Number two, when there has been a Republican at the helm there, Mark Johnson was decidedly better than Catherine Truitt, who is a Democrat. They could have had a lot more say and a lot more oversight. I think John Torbett and Hugh Blackwell, to their great credit, they were the chairs of the Education Committee, House Education Committee last session. I think they did a great job trying to grapple with it. But I don't think Republicans in North Carolina have done an adequate job controlling the federal spending that they've gotten so far. So a lot of people are optimistic, but as a watcher of that over the last, decade at least, I'm not impressed. And so you mentioned the insertion of Dave Bullock and his promises. This is the auditor of North Carolina. That could be the game changer, but he's got a lot on his plate. So he's going to need, I think, a lot of people pulling in the same direction. As you and I have talked about, I don't have warm connections with the Senate in North Carolina. I've got almost everyone is warm connections in the House. So we're going to need to do something jointly in the General Assembly that's going to bridge that. Right.
Well, so we're about to see. This is uncharted territory. I wasn't alive when the Department of Ed. Well, I was alive, but I wasn't in the position.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, right.
Watching this stuff, but now we're going to see how it pans out. And honestly, I really probably wasn't a product of the Department of Education, because when it went into full swing, I was almost out the door. So really, it's people much younger than me that were really subject to what was the demands of the Department of Education.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into that. Look, I thought the Daily Wire did a great job. They put this up, if I can get it up. So this is basically what it is. You'll see the teacher is actually the one doing the work, getting paid the least amount of money.
Yeah.
And all of these air quotes supervisors who make six-figure salaries are all around supervising the hard work. And I think this is a very good example of what's going on. I mean, take for instance, these equity and diversity trainers, they're getting upwards of, $250,000. Our teachers, on average, are making $65,000, $75,000. And it really shouldn't be that way.
55 is average.
55 is average. Okay. And it should not be that way. A communication specialist, and the thing that kills me is
legislative liaison.
Of course.
They really need that.
Of course. And what really kills me, and we've talked about it, is the social emotional learning coordinators and really a team of government shrinks to supervise discipline. Start beating that ass again. Back, when I was in first grade, then they outlawed it. They really needed it with me. They stopped paddling.
When you were in first grade?
Mm-hmm.
I got paddled in the 8th grade. Miss Cox, I'll never forget that. In journalism class, she told me to She said if I
What?
said another word, she was going to paddle me, and she did.
In 8th grade?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Wow.
listen, they paddled in high school, where I went to high school at Ragsdale.
Wow. Okay.
Mr. Madison, paddle you.
That's interesting because Miss Pfeiffer had the Mr. Be Good. And what she did is took like 15 rulers and put a rubber band on each end so that when she hit,
Yeah.
the sound reverberated. So the sound alone was a deterrent, right?
I know our principal, Principal Madison, he had his fraternity paddle. That was what he paddled.
Oh, well, that will hurt with holes in it because that
Yeah.
really, okay. Yeah, that really gets, but I mean, the discipline, the rules are there, the regulations are there. They've always worked, but they've been jettisoned since Obama's Dear Colleague letter. So that's when it became a race-based issue, et cetera. But the victims of a lot of this school violence happen to be Black Americans, happen to be minorities. And so they're worried about, the perpetrators. What about the victims?
Right. And it's always, how can we make them be mediated, not disciplined?
Yeah. Well,
Mediated.
that's not working. So of course the teachers union is all in a kerfuffle. What I find interesting is the teachers union opposed formation of the Department of Education.
And now they don't want it to be gone. That's hilarious. Well, Randy, what does she make? $600,000 a year, I think.
Look at that. Yeah. She's
See you in court.
Yeah. See you in court. Okay. I mean, get in line. All right. So this is from, and actually I looked, this is from a US or a world population website, but I looked at like 11 other websites, Margot, they're the same. It has the US down, down, down. Todd, so you got your ass beat because you were writing when you were left-handed.
That's terrible.
I wrote when I was left-handed, but they tied my hand behind my back. That's probably illegal now, right, Todd?
It probably is. I think it is.
But guess what? Now I'm ambidextrous. I'm right-handed, but I wear my watch and everything on the right. Anyway, it's all good. Evening lady. Okay, we're going to talk about this tonight, George. We're going to talk about it tonight. What the judges are doing. Okay, so this is the deal. And so Trump made a fair point today. You cannot say that it's because of the size of the country, because China, where's China on this?
It's not in the top 10. But you know what's interesting about this? Now, I won't take anything away from Japan because I really don't know, but I find it hard to believe that Canadians are more educated.
Yeah, well, it's probably
because they'd be the 51st state by now.
Drunk all the time.
If they'd be the 51st state by now if they were the most educated.
Yeah, I don't know what educated. I actually don't know what educated even means anymore.
Correct. Let's define that, right?
Because look at this. This is really pissing me off. So Harvard says it's going to pilot a new intro course to rectify lack of foundational algebra skills. How in the hell is an Ivy League accepting students or even contemplating the notion of accepting students that aren't entering in at calculus level?
I don't have a clue. I'm so glad my daughter went to Georgia Tech and got a math degree, though.
Well, your sister went to Harvard.
Harvard's kid's ass now.
Well, ask your sister. Ask your sister how much this pisses you off. You know how much I spent for tutoring?
Oh, I know. I will honestly say, first of all, my sister is a genius. I'm not going to take that from her. She was a mathematical genius, and she really worked hard to maintain that status because she knew how important it was to be able to go to Harvard.
Well, that was definitely my weak point because I have dyscalculia, got other knowledge areas. So to actually perform proficiently on a test, which I could do, it took me about 60 hours of tutoring beforehand because I have one of those problems where I get it and then I forget it all.
Yeah.
And some people are like that, but for them to do this, it suggests there's a bolus of students they're contemplating or they're battling, letting them in on non-academic.
Well, they made another announcement I saw that went alongside that one, and it basically said if you got a perfect score on your SAT, you were less likely to get in than if you were in a remedial math or reading class. I saw that today. I should have sent it to you.
Yeah, that's look, the Ivies are great for mediocrity and anti-Semitism now. So
snobbery.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the reading scores have declined. This is since 2017, but it's also since 2012. By the way, every metric that I use tonight will be the same one. Okay, the NAP. This is a standardized national test, right? I'm not going to flip around. So it looks like over the last decade, and this is done at 2022. To be fair, COVID happened in 2020,
Yeah.
but we ain't hitting on much for 4th and 8th grade, right? So let's look at North Carolina. And by the way, this is a graphic that I took from John Locke from an article. So I want to credit them right now. They've done all the compilation here. So I don't know. When we look at 2005, right? Because I want to go back 20 years. You know, we were on par with the nation. The nation was at 217. Right. It looks like the height was when in 2013. 2013, 2014, okay. So now we're, now we're a little bit below the nation. But in other words, you would expect with the spending, Margot, for it to be better. Here's what we did. Adjusted for
United States or North Carolina?
That's the United States.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So 371.6%. I'm not great at math. So that seems like a lot, right?
That's a lot. That's a lot, Sloan.
That's a lot. Okay.
650%.
Yeah, outpacing the federal spending. That federal spending is always out of control. Why don't they ever subset this out and say that overall, the biggest line item, the biggest increase is DOE?
They never do.
They never do. 2000 to 2024, this should be of no surprise. It surged by 650% because of all of those COVID grants. By the way, dirty little secret, most of them were misspent.
Oh, yeah, ESSER grants. If you're looking it up in within North Carolina, you can look in the DPI for ESSER grants, and that's all the code.
ESSER 1 and 2, guys. Okay, per pupil, we know that it's around 13,000 per pupil here in North Carolina. That's the state spending. An average of 17,000. So even if we just say, okay, on average, and it's going to be less here, let's just say it's 10,000. 10,000.
That's still $27,000.
But that's 23,000 per student. So what in the actual F is going on? Seriously. I mean, so this is the kind of thing. Yeah, where the spending isn't commensurate. Now, we've already exposed some of this, the gluttony, the pure gluttony that's going on at the DOE. They knocked out, these are just two of the grants that I'm showing you, Margo. They knocked out 101 mil for this stupid ass. Yeah. And then
mail and clerical operations in the mail room. Wow.
To observe it.
To observe it.
What does that job look like?
Looks like a lot of money for nothing to me. You know what? The more I see about what has been going on in our government, the more upsetting it is, because you can tell that what they said is, hey, Sloan, I'm going to be president. I'm going to get your kid in. They're going to be the mail watcher, and I'll pay them $1.5 million.
Right. And they don't even come to work. Okay. So let's talk about that too. You know, I have friends that actually Dave Bolak told me, he goes, do you know that 75% of my office had been working from home for maybe a couple of years now, because since COVID. So, I mean, how are you monitoring and getting your money's worth as the taxpayer when people are working from home? And that's what's happening at the DOE in DC too.
I know. And they're still not coming to work. They're finding ways, or judges are granting them, permission to not go work in an office. And now, I don't know if you saw that report with Carrie Lake, where she showed they bought a brand new building for about $900 million with no one in it. And it doesn't even have a broadcasting space. That's not related to this, but it's just
about Voice of America. That's so funny you bring that up. Voice of America has been a problem. Some of my colleagues have exposed that they have been. This is a kind of like a Radio Free Europe, where we broadcast into Arab nations or Asian nations. But we do theoretically. It's an arm of the State Department. It's funded by the State Department. We do it theoretically to have what's called, soft power right? Sticky power, so, promoting Western values. Turns out a lot of the broadcasters, a lot of programming is anti-American.
Correct. I saw that. That is just shameless, isn't it? Shameful.
It's predictable. The State Department is pure shit from top to bottom. And why are we paying for our own demise? Why are we paying for our own people to call us a-holes on the national scene? And of course they do it in different languages, right?
I will say this. I'm really proud of the way Marco Rubio has gone into that job and really taken charge. And I really believe the State Department in of itself is going to get cleaned up. I have full confidence in that. Not today.
Let me tell you something. They're going to have a skeleton staff of people because a lot of them are reprobates. Just going to say that.
I'm sure they're working on their cleanup list right now.
Okay. Well, they need to put our ass in there. We'll straighten things out.
We would just say, you're gone. You're gone.
With the quickness. Yeah. Okay. So to no surprise, Mo Green, who is North Carolina's Department of Public Instruction superintendent, says, I'm mad.
Get over it.
I'm mad. I'm pissed. We have 1.5 million students. Now, he won't tell you that we have failed every single audit at his department, and it's almost all of it the federal funding. So if you can't find the stuff, if you can't find the money, you can't spend it, you ain't going to miss it. Where am I wrong?
We're about to find out what North Carolina can really work on, because now they're going to have less shells to move around.
You very well said. The largest line item of spending is HHS in the state. Second one is DPI.
Right.
I blame both sides. Okay.
I agree.
And this is the highlights. We're not really getting into the governor's budget, but this is what really pisses me off. I'm going to read this. I'm going to try to keep myself together. His new budget prioritizes safety and well-being through free lunch and breakfast at schools.
That makes
In addition,
a biscuit makes you safer.
Let me tell you what. If you give me a Bojangles biscuit, or you know what I love?
Dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Here's the lip gloss. I love the Chick-fil-A spicy biscuit in the morning. That will keep my demons at bay.
Well, the second part of that, I was so overwhelmed by the first part of that statement that free breakfast and lunch, which I'm not making fun of the fact that people need that, but it has nothing to do with well-being. It does have to do with making sure that they're not starving.
How dare you link it to safety? I'm serious. That is
mental health.
Mental health ain't working. Let me tell you what, mental health is not going to stop the stuff we're seeing going on. I'm tired of this BS. It's time the discipline laws are there for a reason, and they're not being followed for another reason. You know why? DEI.
Oh, we all know. We all know that Mo Green has made it a point to say that, and he's even been very upfront racist about it, that Black children should not be punished the same way as white children. He has said that, and he has had even New Hanover County said it.
Yeah, I know. While I was sitting there, even though the victims happen to be disproportionately Black.
It's crazy. A kid is a kid. I don't care what color you are. If you're a problem, you're a problem.
Yeah, indeed.
And if you're the victim, it doesn't matter either.
Listen, yeah, and a lot of victims are minorities, and they have no voice. They have no voice. Who gets the voice is the perpetrators, not the victim. It needs to stop. So I noticed that you were critical of one of my favorite people in the House about her cooing over what the governor's doing.
Oh, well, first of all, let me just say, Aaron Pere, I don't understand. Is this your personal account, or is it because it's Aaron from North Carolina, or is it your senator account? Because you have to let me block, which is illegal.
I don't know, but
I have a lawyer. I'm going to sue you if you don't let me get on your page, because you are a public official.
Well, okay. So Aaron Pere is the only, and this is her claim to fame, the only Republican in Wake County, which is where I reside. And she, I've been critical of her because she has a tendency to praise Democrats, but she'll come after a damn Republican. Let me tell you what, she will light their ass up. I don't like to see that. So she's coming out and say, oh my gosh, thank you, governor, Democrat governor, for supporting my bill.
Well, that I think goes hand in hand with that whole BS that Stein said, I want to have a more happy and together, relationship with the Republicans. So she's cozying right up into it, eating in his hand just because she can. She just is embarrassing. I said it.
No comment.
I don't live there. I can say it.
You don't live. Yeah, you don't live. Well, I mean, look, she's also absolutely fawned over the Democrat sheriff here in this county while he is trying to demonize and stand in the way of cooperating with ICE after one of his deputies was shot and killed in cold blood by 2 Mexican gang members. I think that's a very bad look. And Aaron, if you're listening, I'm sure you're going to hear about this. Pick the Democrats you wrap your arms around very wisely.
Well, rumor has it she has to hire her husband to be in her office. I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying.
Oh, damn. Okay, let's go on. So I don't know why I put this here, but I just wanted to tell you. I want to tell you a little story about me and then you. Okay. So I found, I was tagged in this post about a month ago from Stop Anti-Semites. My phone was blowing up. Apparently there is a Hamas hole who is a doctor in Catawba. Hamas hole is a combination of a Hamas propaganda and an asshole. And there are some of them. And this guy is a doctor. And so I said, I wanted to look at him. Not only is he a doctor, he's got deep ties, was brought in here from Pakistan by Obama and went to work propagating, get this, and massaging the terrorist message and excusing it. And sitting there and saying that there's a demonstrable difference between ISIS and Islamic Jihad. And there's not. Okay. So I started looking, and then to my surprise, he said he's going to wear his keffiyeh at work. Now, a keffiyeh is a Hamas scarf, right? It's saying that I support terrorism, right? And oh, by the way, you're free to disagree. At least 70% of the country feels that way, okay? So you can disagree, and we can have that. We can't have that discussion. You know why? I'm not talking about it. It's settled for me. That's the way that I conceive of it, and I'm the decider. So here we go. So he's here. This is another doctor, another physician who's saying this is Holocaust inversion, and it is. To call what's happening in Gaza, first of all, Palestine isn't real. To call what's happening in Gaza, which is a response to a terror attack, a Holocaust, it is insulting. Now, here he is. By the way, he calls himself, Margot, a public figure. You actually jumped in on this too. He calls himself a public figure. He's a doctor in Catawba County. And he's jumped around hospitals.
I love how he is a mouthpiece for Hamas there. He knows that Hamas does not want to kill Jews. How does he know that?
He's full of shit. He's full of it.
Let him be the public spokesman. Maybe that'll get him out of the country.
And then he says, then he's talking about Israeli being rapists. So I want to tell you this right now. Okay. If you are a private citizen, you're free to say people from Japan are horrible, whatever. You can do that, right? You're free to do that. But if you're a doctor and you're talking about demonizing people from other countries publicly
or religions,
that's the problem. Because when you go into the doctor, I don't know if you've noticed this, but you'll get like a form. You'll get 100 forms, right? It's going to ask you what your religion is. It's going to ask you what languages are spoken in the home. He has access to this. All doctors do, right? And I said, well, damn, okay, he hates Israelis, so that's my children, right? What languages do we speak in the home? Well, Hebrew and English. Now he's talking about Christians. He's saying, well, Jews are bad, but Christians are really bad.
This goes back to the Saturday people, Sunday people comment.
That's right.
That I've always made.
And then he's saying The
'Cause the
Christians are
hate is
anti-Semitic. Yeah. And then he's saying that the worst are the Christian Zionists, which, by the way, if you live with a biblical worldview and you're an evangelical, that he's talking to you. Catawba County is 99% evangelical. It is a red county. The worst are Christian Zionists who justify land theft and murder in the name of the guy.
So
I think that'd be Jesus, right?
the last sentence is the most offensive. The delusions of organized religion are as amusing as they are criminal. So that is 99% of his base.
Correct. And remember, when you go to the doctor, by the way, you have these forms.
Wear a cross, and that tells him too.
He knows who you are. And I don't know if you're knocked out cold too. I mean, this guy deals with the heart. And as I understand it, like electrical stuff going on in your heart, etc. That's not stuff to trifle with. So you're putting this up, proudly putting this up. He hates Christians. He thinks they're criminal. I mean, this is pretty bad. Now, this pisses me off. Not a normal society. Okay, well, the problem is, if you're a dual citizen or have Israeli children, I mean, this is what you're saying. Depraved people. This is what he's calling Jews.
Unmatched perversion.
He's calling Jews that.
Yeah. But he's also calling
rape.
But he also is calling Christians that without saying it.
Absolutely.
Because he said it earlier. So he's saying it for everybody that supports Jews too.
1,000%. Okay, so now he's tying us together, hates the Bible, etc. This man should not be practicing medicine in the state of North Carolina, period.
So
gang rape.
What are you going to do?
Video evidence of gang rape. This guy is, okay, so first of all, let me collect myself.
Because the fun is just getting ready to start.
So I'm a simple woman. I go to the North Carolina Medical Board, just like the next gal would, and said, can you get your license suspended for this? And well, you know what? You damn sure can.
But not if there's a Democrat governor who picks the board, right?
Well, we're going to get into that. So I sent a good faith complaint. And by the way, if you're listening, Chaudhry, I'm not done with you yet. My process has just begun. And I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And I'm going to work this all the way through till it's done. So the North Carolina Medical Board, to their credit, by the way, because I had a couple of representatives call, they got on this right away. Usually it takes 6 weeks minimum. Okay, so it was 10 days, and he is approved to stay as a doctor and does not have a reprimand, and nothing's going to happen to him.
So these doctors have now decided they're lawyers, and they determine whether he broke the law or not. That's what I read in that letter.
Well, that's a great point. I think they have a legal counsel, but I kept going. I'm diligent, right? I got to the bottom of it. Here's how it works. The board here consists of 13 members appointed by the governor. Is the governor a Democrat by chance? And were they Democrat last time around? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that explains it. So, but the General Assembly, I put this here in yellow, they get to choose 2 people.
Okay.
So 15, right? But they're way outnumbered. Now, glory be, look at this feller. He has served as the medical board president until 2 months ago, when our Democrat Josh Stein put him at the helm of
DHS.
North Carolina Health and Human Services.
Yeah, I think he's from Duke, right?
Duke Regional Medical Center. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now he's the head of
proponent, by the way.
He's head of all of our affairs. Well, you know it. And now the current president, by the way, not for nothing, beautiful woman. But she is now at the helm, appointed by Cooper, and she was a Blue Cross North Carolina medical and pain management physician appointed. Total DEI. Total DEI. So then I kept going. Oversight of the board, right? So good news, the North Carolina Medical Board operates under the authority granted by the General Assembly, which is controlled by who? Republicans. Subject to state law and the regulations. While the governor appoints the members, the board functions as an independent agency with the mandate to regulate medical practice within the state. In other words, we have recourse. Now, I've been to the General Assembly. Well, I go frequently, but I've been 2 times specifically to talk about this issue.
And?
Well, I mean, I'm getting to the bottom of it. We're looking at laws that could counteract this and to bring this to heel. So here's the grounds for revocation. I'm going to tell you that because we're going to take a gander at some of the felons who are now doctors with access to our children behind our backs at any time. So conviction of a felony or crime involving moral turpitude, like trafficking drugs.
What's the term? What do they define as moral turpitude?
I think trafficking drugs, right? Using your office to.
I think inhaling some nitrous oxide before you go to work might be moral turpitude.
Okay. Huffing paint before you go to work, for instance.
Doing some heroin.
Slam an H every morning before you go to work, for instance.
That's right.
Inability. You look, in all seriousness, if we don't laugh.
Oh no, we're laughing because you have to stay on to see that we're not lying.
We're not lying. You have to stay tuned and believe this. Okay, inability to practice medicine because you're so effed up and high, right? Also promoting the sale of drugs. Wow, okay. In a manner
that would be like drug trafficking, right?
I think that would be drug trafficking.
Yeah.
Lack of professional competence to practice medicine. Making false statements or willfully concealing material information. Remember this one, ding, ding. Okay. These are the things. Well, let's check out. And by the way, I'm going to submit to you things that I have found on the North Carolina Medical Board website. So I want you to go to that website. I'm not showing pictures. I'm not saying where they work. I'm putting the full name as it appears in documents, which you will see. So this guy was a physician and received for years abnormal kidney function tests for his patient. Didn't take action.
Didn't tell the patient.
Didn't tell the patient, didn't take action, just kept on trucking. So the medical board, to their credit, had a medical investigator look into this. Okay. And the medical investigator or investigators found, well, son of a bitch. He made the following mistakes and, didn't communicate with the patient. Didn't refer to a specialist, and actually referred to the specialist when the patient was just about dead, right? And yet, let's read this. The medical board says the board is giving you a letter of concern, but the board does not consider this letter to be disciplinary in any way or a limitation or restriction on your license.
So he killed a patient, pretty much.
So I'm not sure. I don't have any verification. The patient.
Okay, we won't say killed him. We'll say contributed to the cause of death because he didn't tell him.
And I don't know if the patient's dead, but I know the patient. I mean, way they, whatever the status of the patient, it was. I mean, clinging to life, and I'm sure it would be a lawsuit, et cetera. But remember, one of the things is you're not practicing medicine according to standards. That's what happened. Okay.
Well,
so I'm just getting warmed up.
Statements, but this is just alarming that, and truthfully, to be transparent with the audience, this is kind of the scenario that happened to my mother. The doctor knew that she had multiple myeloma. It showed up in her blood test because they had specific tests run, and they chose not to tell her.
And it was in the notes, right? Because this guy
was in the notes.
Okay, this guy had it all in the notes. So if you're writing it in the notes and you're not telling your patient, and you're not giving them the opportunity to go to a specialist, and you're violating every medical law that they have, why in the F? Why are you're not even being disciplined?
Right. the pain and agony that cost my family. And the additional thing that happened is by the time we realized that she had it, we couldn't treat her here. Like it couldn't be done locally. We had to.
Cost. Now what, I mean, this is a rural area, right? Let's put this up again. This is a rural area. Okay. Outside of New Hanover. What if the, and I don't know anything about this patient. Okay. Anonymous. Doesn't matter. What's the likelihood the patient won't have the funds to pay for this level of care at this point?
And not be able to get the kind of care they need in the local area as well.
Correct. So this, by the way, we're just getting warmed up. This guy, okay, according to the documents, right? 2014 license permanently revoked for violating law and ethical violations after investigation for prescription fraud. Gosh. So reports say that he wrote prescriptions for his, a group of people. Some of them happen to be teachers, etc. All right. 2017, according to the records, convicted of the felony count of trafficking scheduled substance. Now, I don't know what the F this means. 2021 diagnosed with opioid addiction disorder. Means he's an addict. But guess what? Had his license reinstated, just reinstated. By the way, I'm just showing you cases. I just looked at what happened in the last 60 days for the highlights. This is shit that just happened. I have no idea.
Imagine going back further.
Now look. This has it in the report, and I read the 2017 trafficking conviction constitutes a conviction of a felony within the meaning of blah blah blah, which is grounds for denial of his application for reinstatement.
But they didn't deny it because he sought treatment. That's what I'm reading right here.
They put it up and said, you know what, buddy? Probably some restrictions, but go ahead. All right, now let's check out this guy. Look, who among us, let me just say, who among us isn't anxiety plagued quite often?
Listen, I pay $250 every time I go to my dentist just to get high on nitrous oxide for an hour.
Okay, but I mean,
but I have to stay in the seat.
Look,
I'm not allowed to drive. I'm not allowed to drive for 30 minutes.
Well, I get stressed. And this fella, he admitted, like, listen, I got a problem. I take big ass fucking tanks of nitrous oxide to my home.
He was driving and took more hits.
Now, wait a minute. This is where it gets good. This is where we got to take a sip. All right. With nothing in it, by the way. I'm not managing stress. So April 3rd, after inhaling half a tank of nitrous oxide at home, he drove back to work. While driving,
he took the tank with him.
I mean, I have to laugh or I'm going to lose my mind. He took 2 additional puffs and then got a DWI. Did too much rehab.
He crashed his car and got a DWI. Because listen, had he not crashed his car, they would have never known.
Right. Well, there you go.
Wow.
2 months of rehab and received
a reprimand.
A reprimand.
I want to know how he got that nitrous oxide. You can call me later. I'm just kidding.
You already know that she's willing to pay $250 a hit. So
listen,
Andrew, if you're listening, and by the way,
I don't want yours because you'll get me in trouble.
That was a joke, and it was not a funny one. Okay, so let's go back to. Okay, so lack of professional confidence. I imagine if you wreck your car, you can mess up a patient.
After inhaling, after basically smoking, inhaling nitrous oxide, laughing gas. Wow.
What if you had a
kid?
Once, but
well, what if you had a kid? Let's just say he's a family doctor. I don't know what kind of doctor he is, who comes in with appendicitis and you're high. You could hurt that kid. You could misdiagnose them.
Oh yeah. Okay. Then this one's a trip. Okay, so this one's. I mean, I'm gonna have to laugh, and this is so absolutely absurd. Then we find Dr. Farad Riaz, another one that's made comments about Jews. Anyway, and he's Arab and Muslim. So that's God, what is the deal? Is there any correlation? I don't know. So anyway, 2022, and there's lots more of them like this. Okay, he got his revoked license due to a felony conviction. Listen, he had a scheme. Okay, this isn't trivial. And by the way,
That's kind of funny.
this I know. Listen, this takes a lot of
$300,000.
it takes a lot of work. So I guess the gist of it, right, is he's like ordering shit and then returning it. Like, I'm going to tell you something. When I order Amazon and does it fit or whatever, I'm so lazy. I don't feel like returning it.
Now he probably goes to Dollar General, or no offense anybody that goes there, or the dollar store, replaces that expensive item with a cheap one.
Oh my God.
That's what it sounds like this now. I'm not saying that. That's what it sounds like.
Now get this. His license was revoked and reinstated, but it gets worse. So 2023, he's done, right? He's out. Get this. 2024, he gets caught lying on paperwork to Arizona Medical Board, lying about his criminal investigation. And guess what? He got reprimanded for dishonesty. But
they
damn
did
it,
not
he doesn't have a
restrict his license.
And let me tell you what he does. He treats patients for dermatology via telehealth in North Carolina. The screwery that you can do with that, seeing
That's crazy.
elderly and all that. Let's take a look of his suspensions. That's listed. So other states have taken action. Check this out if I can. Hold on. Let me put this up there. Hang on.
Oh my gosh. That's
Let's
just in 1 month.
No. These are states that took action against him.
Against that one guy?
Yeah. And North Carolina, for whatever reason, said, you're free and clear to practice here, buddy. Because he's a felon. And then he lied. How do you have trust in the North Carolina Medical Board? You are ridiculous.
That's
and
embarrassing.
You are endangering public health. These are things that have just recently happened. I mean, if
That's
I go
embarrassing.
back,
and somebody in the General Assembly should take a look at that, because that's just flat out embarrassing.
I can tell you that they are. I can tell you that the doctor I put up, he will lose his license in some way. I promise you, he's going to be the poster child. Oh, and the best part is, Chaudhry, the guy, and this is funny, he looked me up, and he found that there was an improper arrest of me, and he threatened me publicly that he would do it to me if I didn't shut up.
Oh. He might have got the FAFO treatment just around now.
Well,
we're in the FA part.
It made me real mad.
We're still in the FA part.
I'm going to take my time.
That is insane.
So, but it's scary. So let's put up. So we broadcasted this. I've talked about this for years. You and I. Please look at the law in North Carolina for minors. Minors can independently consent to any of the doctors I showed you tonight, treating them for drug addiction behind your back and never tell you. Birth control behind your back and never tell you. Emotional problems, which every one of these guys has it. They can treat without telling you. And in North Carolina, if you're 13 years old, you have to start, in some practices, and any of them can do it, you have to start making your parents get written permission before they can see your records.
Well, so here's where I have a problem. So a kid can go to a doctor who is a mandatory recorder, and the doctor has more privacy with a child than a parent.
Yeah.
So if you got, wait a minute, if you got those kind of abusers of the law as mandatory reporters, how could you not think and take the leap that they could do that if they just say, let's say they don't like you?
They could call. Okay, so this son of a bitch could see my children behind my back. Not my children, because they come a cold day in hell where they step in a room with this guy. But conceivably, they can see my children and report to DHHS that the children had marks on them, or he suspected something, and his word would be taken over mine. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And he could literally have your children taken away from you. And you would have zero say until you got to court.
Which could be weeks, could be months, right?
Could be months.
So we have a problem in this state. Now, we're going to have a law that's going to be proffered next week. It should have wide support. And what it's going to do, Margo, it's going to make it so that the age, right, is going to be 18 before you can consent to your own treatment. And it totally makes perfect sense to me.
And we need to help support this law.
Oh, yeah, because there's a couple of Republicans, one in particular, that's standing in the way, apparently. Now, Tim Reeder, no names, Tim Reeder, Representative Tim Reeder, if you're listening out in Pitt County, please do not sit there and say that you are going to take the side of doctors when we know now that at least a handful, and if I go digging, I'm going to get a lot more, that these reprobates are allowed to keep their licenses. I won't say they're reprobates. I'll say a couple of them are. Some of them may have actually redeemed themselves. But at a certain point, if you keep getting arrested for trafficking drugs, find a new career.
No, we'll find you one outside of our state.
Please go, right? But I don't want to hear from any representative that these doctors who have done these things have more rights than me as a parent to know what's going on. I can research the doctor at least.
Not only know what's going on, but control your child.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, give them medicine. What if, and I'm just going on a limb, you could see a scenario where a doctor could use children, right, be treating them for mental health disorders and use them to distribute drugs. I'm not saying it's happened.
No, but it could.
But I'm saying in the model that some of these doctors have been charged with, you could see it. And I'm sitting here saying to the Democrats, to the Democrats and Republicans, you're patting yourself on the back for raising the age of smoking to 21. I don't like tobacco. I get it. You need to raise the age of consent to 18.
Correct. Oh, wait, I agree. It's crazy that it isn't.
Right. And so Republicans, I want you to know out here, we're not going to get distracted. The only age of consent that we really care about is this. We do not want our children. By the way, in North Carolina, the age of consent is 0.
Wow.
That means, right, at any age. Now, we did pass a law that would keep this conceivably at bay, although they're going to break the law. Obviously, if they've broken the law before, they're going to break the law, right? That would keep this at bay in schools, but I don't know.
Well, we have a lot to think about. If you're listening to this podcast, I highly encourage you to reach out to Tim Reeder and tell him that we need the age of consent to be 18, not 13 or 0. It doesn't matter. That you have the right as a parent to have more control and more information on your child that you're paying the insurance for most often.
Correct. So we're going to close this out, but just to put this list up, these are the 4 exceptions. These are the 4 things that you could be a child 0 and up and consent to.
Well, and what's weird to me is emotional or mental health include, listen, that is really the trans, that's the trans window right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that could be anything. And by the way, I mean, you could, as a family doctor, diagnose a mental illness. You can. You don't have to be a psychiatrist. So even though they're not specialists, and so this is what we're up against. This is real, and we felt it was important enough to really double click on it. Yeah. So listen, on Tuesday, I've already been getting a lot of calls about Sheriff Sam Page coming on. Tell me about it.
So after our Tuesday podcast, got a phone call from Sheriff Sam Page, who's running against Phil Berger. And he asked if we could, I asked him actually, would he please join our podcast? He was going to do it tonight, but he had another pre-existing commitment, a prior commitment. So he offered to come on Tuesday night. And we're going to talk about ICE, Law and Order, and a little about his campaign. But we're really going to talk about what the sheriff's role is, ICE, and what is going on in the state of North Carolina, how the sheriffs in North Carolina fit in with the Trump administration, because he's on a national sheriff's board. So it's pretty exciting.
He is. And we're going to talk a little bit about terrorism and how that is now getting on everyone's radar. I mean, we see it going on right under our nose, but, Sam loves, loves Israel, loves the IDF. He talks about it frequently, and talk about maybe joint trainings and his idea of joint trainings with North Carolina and Israel on some counterterrorism measures. He and I talked about that. So I think that's going to be great. But we're going to get into that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And we have a special guest on Thursday as well. I'm not ready to announce yet, but Sam Page, everyone told me in the General Assembly they're going to be watching it. So that's going to be interesting because
that's awesome.
He's got a lot to say.
Well, listen, you're going to need to keep watching us, because we're going to have Sam Page next week and another guest on Thursday. And as the candidates come out, we will see more people coming on the show. Don Brown will be on sometime in the near future, who is probably going to run against Tom Tillis.
Well, that'll be interesting. And the sheriff races are going to be interesting. So sheriff races are all across North Carolina. We picked up a lot of seats last time during the midterms for sheriffs. I think, is it 60-40? It needs to be 80-20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're also winding down the GOP in North Carolina conventions in the counties. So those will end by the end of March. Mine is this weekend. Mark Capehart, we're not going to let you win. And they all have to end by the end of March.
I have bail money for you.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Appreciate that. I really need it. April will be district conventions, and then June will be the state convention.
Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of tea on that. Tonight is Cabarrus County, and there's been a lot of brouhaha.
Oh,
so I've already gotten
Jim Quick and who's that? Jim Quick and Lee Brown running against each other.
Is Lee in Cabarrus County?
I think she's running against Jim. So we'll let you know Tuesday. We'll let you know who wins that.
That's right. And you can follow us, by the way. Our X handles are right here. You can follow us there. And thank you for all the YouTube support as well. I don't mean to knock. I'm always talking about X. YouTube, you guys are great. Facebook, you need to pick up the pace. I think we're getting really shadow banned there. So,
well, it's because we tell the truth. They hate us for that.
Telling the truth has consequences.
That's right.
All right. Have a good evening, guys.
Have a good night.
Exactly. Bye.